Three guests today. Robert Shibley, he's the special counsel for campus advocacy at FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. He's a Duke Law School graduate, been at FIRE 19 years, I believe. And then we're going to talk to Curtis Houck. He's managing editor at Newsbusters, lots of media experience, and he has appeared all over the place. You can follow him on X, Curtis Houck, H-O-U-C-K. We're going to get into the breaking news and the confusing landscape that's out there. And my third guest is Jerome Hudson, entertainment editor at Breitbart. And he wrote a book, author of 50 Things They Don't Want You to Know About Trump. And I want to get into that and Trump derangement. There's a lot to discuss here. It's all timely, particularly FIRE and, on campus free speech, hate speech, yes or no, what is it? Talk about all that after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I've spent most of my career dealing with illnesses that shorten life, and now we have ways to extend it and extend wellness. I've been working with the team over at V-Shred to develop a product that has everything I want in a longevity supplement. NR Boost has nicotinamide riboside. You know how metal can rust? Well, your body behaves in a similar way. It's mediated through something called NAD. NAD falls as we age, so we're less able to fight off that oxidative process. We oxidize much like that metal. And NAD fights it, but nicotinamide riboside elevates NAD so we can push back on those oxidative stressors, improving health, improving longevity. The other product is Senosync, has fisetin, one of the key molecules to fight off zombie cells, and we've added resveratrol to that, which is a well-known anti-aging antioxidant again. I don't like supplements that have a ton of ingredients. To me, it suggests that none of it's working. When I prescribe a medication, I prescribe that medicine because I expect that to work. That is exactly what I've done with these products. And I want you to go to drdrew.com/vshredmd for 10% off. Again, that is drdrew.com/vshredmd. I don't care where you get it, guys, but everyone over the age of certainly 40 should be on nicotinamide riboside. Get this one, get another one. Please, just get on this. This is silly that people are not on that the rest of their life. I've been on it. Susan's on it. I've enough said. Robert Shibley is special counsel for campus advocacy at FIRE, and we've talked to Greg Lukianoff here before, and I'm a huge fan of FIRE. He has served 6 years as executive director. He launched litigation initiatives. He has represented students and faculty, authored Twisting Title IX. You can follow Robert on X at R Shibley, S-H-I-B-L-E-Y. Robert, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So here we are on the heels of violence because of free speech, one could argue. What is FIRE saying about all this?
Well, this has been one of the busiest weeks in FIRE's history, as you can imagine. When you see somebody violently assassinated on a college campus, specifically at a free speech event, it's hard to see that as anything but the most brutal kind of attack on all of our ability to speak out. And, whether or not, whatever the motivation, it's clear that when you have an assassination like this, the motivation is to silence that person and to go after what it is that they are communicating. And I don't think there's any way of getting around that.
And so one of the areas of interest for me, and this is a poorly formed thought, so do with it what you will, are the people who are taking his material out of context and fomenting hate. Now, there's some of the things he said where I thought, I could see where people would be upset with that, but not hate or not accuse him of hate. And so is there some liability that can be sort of brought to bear? Is there some responsibility that could be pointed out when people take someone and consciously take their message and turn it into a hate message that could imply the need to react in some way. I mean, certainly if you're also on the recipient side, also saying these words are a threat to your existence, which is what you hear oftentimes, well, then that implies that you better take care of that or your existence will be affected.
Yeah, we have a real problem with this idea that words are themselves a species of violence, because it does draw an equivalence between the two. And if, for instance, one of the arguments is that Charlie Kirk's speech was erasing trans people, and some people use the word killing or murdering them, then it makes sense that you would say, all right, well, if that's what's happening, why wouldn't I use actual violence in order to stop that? And that equivalence does not exist. It's something that has become very common as sort of a trope on college campuses. And frankly, in Europe and much of the rest of the world, you can be punished for saying, words are considered a species of violence in some places, including English-speaking places like the UK and Australia. But it hasn't been the way America has done it. And I think our system is the superior one.
Well, and I would argue they're pushing back in the UK. It seems like that they want to get the people that have promoted that or brought that to bear in an extreme way out. But what about faculty and administrators that have allowed this to develop? Don't we have them responsible in some fashion?
Well, I think we do. One of the, I think, errors that people make is they are trying to cover up so they hear vile things they think are vile being said on campus, and they decide that the right way to address that is to prevent it from being said. The fundamental problem with that is that that's a Band-Aid for the actual problem, which is, if you believe it's a problem, that people think that you should be killed for what you say. And I'll say that I am prejudiced in that way, and I do think that's a problem. All you're doing is teaching people who maybe didn't step out of line, who didn't, make their opinion known beforehand, to quiet down. But that's not going to change their mind. And I don't think it's going to change the mind of people who are exposed to those cancellations either. I mean, many people, I saw the clip, for instance, that you introduced it with, where, people were saying things about COVID-19 and getting shut down. I'm not sure that actually changed anybody's opinion who is speaking out about that. It might have made you more cautious about saying things, but did it change your opinion? I'm not sure I've ever met somebody who has changed their opinion because they've been silenced. And so it really is a false way of trying to address what might be a real problem. In terms of, who's responsible, obviously everybody's responsible for what they say. We have individual rights to say these things, but I do think it's worth considering that universities have a huge amount of groupthink. That is not an accident. It may not be deliberate, but whatever decisions are being made on who should be hired at universities, there's a reason they seem to be overrepresented in areas like this, because there is no feedback to them saying, maybe it's not cool for you to say that your political opponent should be shot in the neck in front of their children.
Yeah, I will tell you, as someone that was silenced or canceled during the whole COVID thing, it clarifies and galvanizes your position, and it makes you a free speech advocate. It's exactly what it does. Yep. It does. It clarifies things for you. Articles like this in the New York Times look offensive after going through something like that. Not just offensive, inexplicably confounding. Like, I can't imagine it. But here we are, a world where the United States press says something like that. But let me ask this again more directly. Are you guys going to do something about that? Is there a plan?
Well, we've been, reaching out and of course, hearing from both people at TPUSA chapters who they're having their vigils. There's people who are trying to clamp down on those to some extent. To some extent, that's understandable. People are very worried about safety issues, but at the same time, universities and colleges need to work overtime to make sure that a murderer doesn't get a veto over what we say on campus. And we've
how are we gonna make sure of that? And tell me to stand by if indeed that's the case, and to shut up. I will. But we need to do something, it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably no quick fix solution that doesn't involve a huge investment in security. And I do think it's important that people be able to speak at large outdoor events if they need to, and that may take more securing. But in the medium and long term, universities and the rest of our cultural institutions need to do a much better job of explaining why it is good that there are people around who you might profoundly disagree with. There are 330 million people in this country. No matter what you're saying, no matter how inoffensive you think you are, there's probably 1 million people in America who are livid about what you're saying. And we cannot survive as a society if we are going to solve that through violence.
I'm a big fan of fire, but I'm going to lean on you one more time. To me, that feels like fire's position as long as I've known about the organization, and now somebody's dead. So here we are. But let me switch topics for a second and talk about hate speech, because I'm a little unclear about it, and I want you to help me with this, which is. I guess fundamentally and simply, the question should be, is there such a thing as hate speech, or should there be something like that?
Right. Well, our position and the traditional position of American law has been that there is no such thing as hate speech from a legal perspective. The First Amendment protects from government punishment basically by default, all speech except for certain exceptions. And hate speech is not one of those exceptions for the very good reason that nobody can decide on what it is. And boy, have we ever gotten an education in how that means. I mean, people are, justification that people are giving for why they're happy that Charlie Kirk was killed, et cetera, was that he was engaging in hate speech. So it really does come from the eye of the beholder. And again, in this big, diverse society, there's just no way that we can come to a conclusion about what might be hateful speech. So you have exceptions like calling for imminent lawless action. In other words, saying like, let's all go kill Charlie Kirk would not be protected. But celebrating somebody's death, like the Westboro Baptist Church used to do, they would have those thank God for dead soldiers signs. I mean, really calculated to annoy the largest number of people possible. That's all been deemed to be protected.
So when the Attorney General talks about hate speech, is she just misinformed? Is she talking about something else? Is that a tilt towards something that's coming or that she wants? What do you think that was?
Well, I certainly hope it's not. I mean, I hope it was an emotional sort of reaction to what's going on. It's difficult to believe that our highest law enforcement officer believes that hate speech is illegal in the United States. Obviously, there's lots of Americans who think it should be, including in law schools. But
yeah, there are, and I don't understand. I guess I don't know. I'm not trying to understand the argument, but let's hear what she's. Maybe can you start this at the beginning, Caleb? I'm sorry to do this to you.
Sure.
Let's hear what she's saying.
First Amendment is one of our most important amendments, of course, in our Constitution. We will always protect the First Amendment, but you cannot create violence, and that's what's happening. When people are working together, you talked about RICO, it's RICO. When people are working in concert to commit crimes, the president was talking about people who are breaking up bricks, throwing it at police cars, people who are being paid to dox police officers, to dox victims of crimes, that can jeopardize lives. And that's when you cross the line from First Amendment to a crime. And we will prosecute.
Okay, well, that's what you and I were just saying, right? Is that you can't create circumstance of imminent harm. So maybe that's all she was talking about. Caleb, did you hear anything else? I heard some energy from you and Emily this morning. Was there something else you heard her say?
She needs to be clearer because she's speaking with the language of the left right now, and the weapons that we forge against them right now is going to be used against us in 4 or 8 years. Look, we have to protect free speech. It has to be a hard line.
I bristle against us them talk. But I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I get it. We need to become Americans again. That's my, my sincerest hope. We should put up the last paragraph of Lincoln's second memorial, please. And those are words that we should be living by. We are not enemies. We are but friends. We should be friends. So last paragraph.
Yeah, it's important, and people need to realize that, if we are going to have a democratic society, that we are going to have to treat each other as humans. This is a hard thing that we're doing, trying to run a society with 330 million people in it, where everybody gets a voice, and with wildly different, there's never been a place like America before, where you can have everybody from people just getting here from Saudi Arabia. My dad's neighbor up in Toledo had 2 wives. One back in Saudi Arabia and one here. And then you have people who are trans living in San Francisco. I don't think there's ever been a society that has as much freedom as we do with that much difference. And so it is tough to do. And you're right. A lot of the answers aren't particularly satisfying, because you just want the violence to stop. You want it to go away. You don't want to hear about it at the very least, but you're not better off for not knowing how things really are. But sometimes things are not great.
Right. I don't know. I walk around a place like New York City and I just marvel that we're all here. We're all fine. Yeah. And then I think about LA, and, people don't understand how diverse it is with all the Pacific Rim cultures all over. It's 20 different Pacific Rim, communities near where I live, and people I serve as a physician, and delighted to do so. And everyone gets along, but at their core, when they get along best, it's when there is their family systems, there are core values within that family system. They can differ than other people's values, but there has to be some sort of, I don't know what the word is, whether it's restraint or, the thing that got me this week is I feel like the moral sensibilities got washed away. And if we don't have moral sensibilities, we are shit out of luck. What do you say?
That's been really discouraging, but I do think there is a hopeful note, which is that as grim as what we saw on social media, and I confess was surprised at how many people seem to have very, very strong feelings about Charlie Kirk. Maybe I'm too Gen X-y for this. I don't think I'm quite as upset by anybody as so many people seem to be about that. But the revealed preference of people is to live together peacefully. People do, for the most part, get along. Political violence and assassinations are very rare. And so, even though people might be saying, it's good that he died, you notice most people aren't actually volunteering to sign up, go do it, or even see it in person. And 3,000 people at Utah Valley University saw that in person. And I'd be very surprised if many of them said, you know what, I want more of that in my life.
Yeah. No, you mean the violence?
Yeah, the violence. This is not an appealing way to live. Yeah.
There's a reason that medieval leaders would torture people in public, because there's something about the inviolability of the delusion we have about the inviolability of our bodies. When that is shattered and collectively experienced, that's a kind of a collective experience that has not been unleashed in a long time. And we'll see what that does. I hope it, again, the better angels of our nature are what I'm hoping for. Well, tell me more what's coming up for FIRE. What are you guys doing? What are you fighting? What do you want us to all keep an eye out for or support? How can we be of help?
Yeah, sure. Well, you can see what we're up to at any time at our website, thefire.org. But FIRE, many years ago, we were founded in 1999 to defend free speech on campus. We now do off-campus speech as well. So, everything from somebody yelling at their city council and being censored and told they can't do that, to the issues with trying to take away people's passports or their visas if they say something that the people in power don't like. That's all the stuff that we've been fighting on a nonpartisan basis, and we're going to continue to do that. FIRE is a very reactive place. Our job is to make sure those rights continue. And that means, what we do changes from year to year very quickly.
I just saw something on X that would be a good case for you guys. It was a city, I think it was a mayor or a leader in the city who was changing the name of a street, and the name happened to be of Islamic leader, and somebody from the community was objecting to a name change. Now, he didn't say this name. He just said, I don't want this city. And he was cast out of the meeting as an Islamophobe for bringing up his point of view. And I thought, well, the fire needs to get in there. His can be heard. They may still change the name, whatever, but let's hear more. And by the way, that civic leader should have been interested to know more about what was on that guy's mind. Is he Islamophobic? If so, maybe we can work on that. Change what's going on here that you're Islamophobic. Or are you not? You just want the old name of the street. Oh, is that it? Dearborn's mayor.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, those are the kind of things we're seeing.
Debate
all kinds going on.
It was a pro-terror Arab leader street, and maybe he was objecting to the politics. I don't know. It has nothing to do. I didn't see. Whatever. Who am I? But I will defend his right to speak about it. That is the part that caught my eye, that he was cast out of the meeting. All right, Robert. Thank you so much, and please keep us posted on FIRE's progress and what else. If there are any big events coming around, you will let us know. Okay. Thanks for having me. All right, Robert Shibley, everybody. You can find him on X on R Shibley, Shibley. Next up, we've still got Jerome Hudson in the background there. Curtis Hawk, he is managing editor at Newsbusters. You can follow Curtis on X, Curtis, Curtis, Hawk, Houck. Curtis, are you there?
Mm-hmm. Aha, there I am.
So welcome. I'm guessing you are busy these days. What are you working on?
Yeah, well, it's been an incredible week, unfortunately, in the country's history. We've been all over the place, monitoring all sorts of media coverage about the Charlie Kirk shooting on top of anything else that may come about. And to see the narrative change about the Kirk shooting in just a week, to go, through multiple steps to where we are now, is been really something to see.
How do you characterize that? Because I'm still stuck in... I can't understand how people can celebrate this. I can't get my head around it. I also can't get my head around why people don't seem to be able to digest the information that is coming in about the killer.
Yeah, no, I think that last point is such a huge observation. And the way I've been thinking about this is there were two initial reactions. There was genuine sadness and a sense of unity from even people like Brian Stelter. I mean, my goodness, Brian freaking Stelter was like, we can only have a democracy if we can solve our disagreements with words and not violence. Or you had other people like Matt Dowd who said hateful thoughts, as in Charlie Kirk's views, lead to hateful actions. People referred to him as controversial, a lightning rod, said controversial things, that was their first thought of him when news came down that he had been shot. And therefore, we need to do better as a country, that we all have to look at ourselves and look at our tone. Are we doing the right thing? And if not, maybe we should accept some accountability here. And then the weekend narrative became maybe he was a right-winger. And then actually, as you have on screen here, people who are saying, oh, maybe it's better that he's not here anymore. Or I'm so sad he's gone, but fill in the blank. And now the new narrative has shifted to the shooter himself is simply responsible for his own actions, which is entirely different than a number of other mass shootings we saw during the first Trump administration, such as the El Paso Walmart shooting was blamed on the president because the guy had some serious issues and mental health issues, and also had a thing against Hispanics. They connected that to President Trump's desire to build the wall and El Paso being near the border. And now we're moving on to power of love, that he did this out of love to someone. They're trying to Luigi Mangione this guy. They're trying to Luigi Mangione him, and it is pathetic.
Right. So it's interesting. So it's Trump's fault didn't stick, right? Which is kind of interesting to me because they jumped to that right away, right? Which was that guy's rhetoric, Trump's rhetoric is what gets everybody upset, and then Charlie was just a henchman, a Nazi henchman, essentially. And are we getting at or any better awareness at the dehumanizing rhetoric that implies violence? I mean, I've heard people start to say, including Jeff Fetterman, God bless him, that dude, when it's important, he comes through, and I thought he was so right. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what you've done for a lot of your career. Try to foster to bring people together. And my goodness, I mean, that's what makes us different than, I don't know, wusses in Europe or authoritarian dictatorships in places like China. That does make America great. And so I think we definitely have lost that. But I think the public awareness about how, the way we talk about each other can unfortunately set people off who are not thinking straight about this. And this is the point that Scott Jennings and a lot of other folks have tried to make that do appear in mainstream media, saying, calling somebody a fascist, calling somebody a Nazi, comparing someone to Hitler, in considering the record that Hitler and fascism had in the 20th century, you may think, it just takes one person to say, well, those people were really bad and those people were eventually taken out. So we need to do something about this. We're talking about it like a war, like Senator Chris Murphy did.
Curtis, if indeed this is Hitler and his henchmen, what patriot wouldn't step forward?
Correct, exactly.
This is what's crazy about this, and so what do you I don't know if you caught this. I'm not even sure I can paraphrase what Jimmy Kimmel said last night. It was something like. That essentially the truth is finally out. This Tyler character is a right-wing MAGA extremist.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right? And to me,
the MAGA's behaving like 4-year-olds.
And it's so wild to me because I just thought, wow, how did he get there? How could we be looking at the same material? Or is he? Maybe he's being shielded from it, and some writer wrote this, and he's just reading. I don't think so. He seemed very.
No.
It happens. People read prompters. I mean, that happens. But he seemed to be very adamant about it. But how? I'd like to understand how he got there. And now I'm hearing the FCC is going to look at, that this might be some sort of violation, which I hate because I want him to be able to speak. If he's thinking that, I want to see what he's thinking. How did he get there? Is there something? Can you see a route to that way of thinking?
It's groupthink, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, you recall, that his wife is a really big part of the team there as well. So it's very insular in the community that he flies with. It's these comedy shows, the audiences are largely, congratulatory. They're there for the applause lines to talk about how great they are and to cheer them. And so we found at the Media Research Center, so many jokes are not really jokes in late night comedy, which is a whole other separate conversation. But I think this goes to the level of how polarized we are, to the point that if we don't know people who think differently and we're not able to see the humanity in them, it doesn't take much for us to then leap into the juvenile, which is what Jimmy Kimmel has done, and then also the violent as well, as in what this alleged suspect thought about Charlie Kirk. Unfortunately, it's following this to a logical conclusion, and neither one is good.
Right. But I'm leaning on you to help me understand these things because I'm just gobsmacked, mystified, and all these things. And I don't know if you saw at the Emmy Awards, again, not one mention of Charlie Kirk, which was interesting. Yeah. But Colbert said, you don't love something as much as when you lose it. I've never loved my country so much, meaning the country is lost. What are they talking about? I'd like to know. I want to know, where are we lost? And is it Curtis, that people who've assumed that people from the elite, they're always elite, that they were right and just and almost holy in their cause, therefore should have the privilege of being in power indefinitely forever, and any deviation from that is a decay, is a decadence, especially if they lose. Batya Ungar Sargon pointed out to me this yesterday, especially if they start losing the culture. That is just untenable to them. And we have young people now going a different direction, it seems. I don't know. But what do you make of that kind of construct on this?
Yeah, a lot of these major institutions, which have been taken over by liberal elites for so long, no longer have the same capturing power. But I think it starts ground level that these people, they derive their happiness or lack thereof from politics, from whether they are the ones calling the shots. They're not really able to see or consider or put at the heart of it that the most important thing is, whether they're happy with their job or their family or some higher power that they believe in. It is whether, politics is going their way or not. And that's a really sad place to be. It's not like sports or club or reading books or something else. Any hobby can be gratifying. It's not that. It is the thesis of their very being.
Right. It's the opposite of leave me alone, which is what many of us instinctively want. Just leave us alone. It is we're gonna lead you to a better life. I'm here from the government. I'm here to help you. And history is replete with evidence that is not the way to do things. So the last thing I want to get from you is an interpretation of the texting back and forth between Tyler and his. I don't know what to call Tyler's. Because people have been saying boyfriend, I think the correct thing would be girlfriend, but I think that's how she would, let's say partner, Tyler's partner, love partner.
Other, yeah.
And they should be at their liberty to live their best life. Had this not all happened, I would have been fully supportive of that relationship. Now there's something going on. But what do you make of those text messages? Let's look at what an ABC News reporter made of it. I want your sort of comments on this. You got that for me, Caleb?
With such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
So he's exposing his bias at first, which is transgender couples can't have a loving relationship. Is that somehow surprising to you, asshole? That to me is shocking that no one called him out on that, number one. Number two, what he's pointing at is that this guy was so cold-blooded that he could look right past what he had done back to his intimate relations and his own priorities. It's cold-bloodedness that was on display there. But I said I was going to let you comment. I couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
Yes, Matt Gutman is going for the murderers are people too takeaway here.
May I use that? I want to use that, please.
Yeah, murderers are
really funny.
Matt Gutman. Murderers are people too. I mean, he doubled down a few minutes later. He talked about a very touching portrait of a very human person, a very human experience, and he called the text wholesome and robust. And he entirely made up text messages. He claimed that the suspect said, "My love and my reason for doing this is to protect you." Those aren't real texts at all. Matt Gutman has been suspended twice by ABC News before. And yet he came on Twitter this morning and said, well, I was just trying to convey what's your point, the cold-hearted nature of this. But you just did that, Dr. Drew, without actually calling it touching. And he spoke so lovingly of his significant other. It didn't seem like, you didn't make it seem like you were kind of trying to humanize him.
No, I would say that it's to be expected, and the touching elements stand out in contradistinction to the cold-bloodedness that he's capable of both. And isn't that astonishing for people? But murderers are people too. I love that. I'm going to use it, Curtis. Hopefully I'll give you a chance to give you credit for it. That is your new book. but gosh, there was something else you just said that I wanted to get to also. Shoot. Oh, I know. I did a simple Grok search. And I said, I wanted Grok to compare the text messages with Walter White's strategies with his wife. And I'll be damned if it wasn't almost like entry by entry right out of the Walter White playbook. And so the question then becomes, well, is that just how psychopaths do their thing? Or is this a some sort of smokescreen straight out of the pages of Breaking Bad?
Yeah, well, that's an important question. And that's obviously something that I feel like the country's been dealing with since Columbine, that you pivot to like just school shooters in general and how a lot of them may be inspired by their actions as well. And they idolize them and they want to emulate them as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously that show is very interesting because you're talking about kind of the anti-hero and the complicated nature of living in gray, the grays of life.
And it was a strategy that Walter White used to keep people off the track. He used it to a purpose, to an end.
But when you then translate it then to your own life and try to apply it then to, in this case, taking out someone with whom you disagree without your significant other even knowing it, that's when you kind of cross a line. This was not a love-torn child, as someone on CNN said last night. Give me a freaking break.
Oh my God. Who said that?
Montel Williams. He said the following. We're talking about a love-torn kid.
Hang on.
This was his first real relationship.
Well, it's true. That's true. That is true. And murderers are people too. so there we go.
Exactly. Again, that's the new narrative that they've settled on.
Yeah, and it kind of suggests a moral relativism that is frightening, frankly. On one hand, I'm fighting hard to create empathy for people, and I want people to have empathy, and I want people to even empathize. What I would say, if you want to empathize with Tyler Robinson, I think his last name is, empathize with the fact that he got brainwashed by somebody, and maybe those are the people we should be holding accountable.
Or his parents.
He also, say it again, who?
Or he empathized with his parents, the position that his parents were in.
God,
they made the decision to turn their child in, knowing that he might face the death penalty. They knew that was the right thing to do.
We weirdly watched a movie last weekend before this happened called Bad Seed, about a mother who was in that position. Her young daughter was killing people, and she became aware of it. And what did she do about it? And she tried to kill herself, the mother, eventually. What I came away with thinking about that very issue that you're bringing up here is how one person can change the lives of so many. The Kirks, his wife, his parents, his children, Tyler Robinson's own family, and there may be an extended family there, and there might be a neighborhood there, there might be teachers that feel responsible. He shattered, and his boyfriend or girlfriend, he shattered so many lives, and one is dead. And that's, as I always say, whatever the reason is, whether it's mental health or somebody brainwashed you and they should be held accountable. And once you get to the point where you have broken law, the opening of this, my show here, there's me talking to Anderson Cooper about the Sandy Hook shooter. And what I was screaming at him about was, you have to get help before you kill somebody. And I have not changed from that position since Sandy Hook, and that applies to this guy as well. Curtis, I appreciate you being here. Where should people find you? What's on your radar?
Yeah, newsbusters.org, newsbusters.org. We're going to be looking more at the Charlie Kirk situation. We're going to be naming and shaming more of these folks who are trying to equivocate and come up with other excuses for the motive. We have some other things coming up about the economy as well. You want to stick around for that. Newsbusters.org, Newsbusters on all social media platforms. And as you so graciously said at the beginning, I'm on X, Curtis Houck, all one word.
All right, my friend. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
All right, we will take a little break. And we get back, we're talking to Jerome Hudson. He is entertainment editor of Breitbart. 50 things you don't want to know about Trump. I want to talk a little Trump derangement. So many of these things are sort of, I don't have the same reaction that a lot of people really do. Trump put something on X today that troubled me greatly. I wonder what it's doing to those with Trump derangement. But here we go. Jerome after the break. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it, I make Susan take it, my whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue, and we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. What's so special about Paleo Valley's grass-fed and finished bone broth and superfood bars? Well, everything. All are delicious, high in nutrients, low in calories, and contain nothing artificial. Co-founder Autumn Smith on what goes into every superfood bar.
So we have bone broth protein powder, and then we've added other superfoods, cashew butter, we have spirulina in there, acerola, broccoli powder, kale, blueberries. And so it really is kind of just an infusion of superfoods with every bite.
And then there's the extraordinary bone broth protein made with an ancestral approach that boosts our collagen intake.
Collagen is something that's gone by the wayside in our modern diet because we don't eat nose to tail anymore, but it was something we ate a lot of, and it has so many benefits. So if you have sagging skin, joint pain, gut issues, your decreased bone mineral density, slow to heal your wounds, slow recovery, these are all things that collagen can dramatically improve. If we're not giving our body the building blocks to produce it, we just age more rapidly. It also improves sleep, improves blood sugar control. So it's essentially like the Swiss Army knife of healthy aging.
Like I said, Paleo Valley's bone broth is something special. Make Paleo Valley part of your longevity regimen. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 20% off when you subscribe and 15% off your first order. That is drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. The wellness company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/CWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
Ask Dr. Drew.
I have no idea who Dr. Drew is.
He's been watching a lot of Dr. Drew lately.
Dr. Drew.
And we welcome now Jerome Hudson, entertainment editor of Breitbart. 50 things they don't want you to know about Trump. Jerome, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You are.
Huge fan.
Oh, so much better than the previous images I was getting from you. Thank you for doing all that. So tell me, I'm curious about the 50 things. What is in there?
Yeah, it was a fascinating year and a half deep dive into the objective positive wins that Donald Trump was able to promote and then pass and sign into law during his first term. It's quite remarkable given the nonstop, uninterrupted vilification of his administration, but just remarkable things that I sort of tucked into chapters, like the fact that in 2018 and 2019, Drew, Black women represented the demographic of voters who saw new businesses opening. And what's particularly interesting about that is there wasn't a huge increase in new startup loans for new businesses, and Black women drew in 28, certainly in 2016 and in 2020, but historically are that demographic of voters who support the Republican the least. And so you have a demographic of voters who benefited the most from Donald Trump's economic policies, but did not in any way significantly support him. Obviously, the immigration numbers, the crackdown on employers, the annual wage increases, the black-white wealth gap closing for the first time in 30 years. The confluence, Drew, of, again, the objective wins for Americans, drugs for HIV being subsidized for a decade. You could disagree with a lot of these policies, but Donald Trump, if he wasn't president, they didn't happen. And you can point to and say, well, Barack Obama did a lot of good things and Joe Biden did a lot of good things. The media and Donald Trump's detractors like to give him all the blame for the bad things. And this book paints a remarkable picture of how he deserves most of the gratitude and praise for the good things.
So what do you guess is the source of this Trump derangement? I sit in kind of astonishment all the time. I see what people see. I see the tweets that are, sort of over the top. And there's one in particular I want to talk to you about that I found disturbing. I wonder if you did too. But I didn't go crazy over it. I went back to, I wish you'd please stop that. Let's talk about your policies today. What are you going to do for Americans? Let's get something done here. And I can do that. But why can I do that and some people can't?
Look, I'm talking to you now. As I say when I host on SiriusXM, live from downtown Jacksonville, Florida. I've been here since 2016. I was in Tallahassee for 12 years, but I was born and raised in Savannah, Georgia. I was born in a home in which, my mother was born in 1941. My dad was born in 1954. They lived through the civil rights era. But I can tell you, Drew, no excuse was ever made for myself or my brother or my niece who came to live with us when she was 12 years old. There was no victimhood. There was no victimology. And there was certainly no separatism in my household. It was a Christian home. My dad was a former drill instructor. And so we weren't raised to view the world through the lens of victimhood. And the first dose that I really got of that was I didn't attend Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida, but I marched in the marching band. I went to Florida State, and it was remarkable. The books that were assigned in the classroom, this was 2004, 2008, they promulgated this sense that because I was born Black, I should have a smaller, shrunken scope of existence because the world was set up in a way in which there were several systems that the odds were just stacked against me. Again, that was completely anathema to, the way I was raised, but it was an uninterrupted cavalcade in which I was constantly told that I should be a victim. And so there's always an answer on the left. If you are Black, you are supposed to vote a certain way. You're supposed to think a certain way. You certainly are not supposed to think or say, laudatory things towards conservatives or conservative policies. And Donald Trump is sort of in his own way went up against those same forces. He donated to Democrats. He helped, elect Democrats in New York and beyond. But the moment, Drew, that he stepped off the proverbial plantation, if you will, the moment that he started to call out the failures of politicians, many of them running on promises to fix the same problems in Washington, D.C., that a lot of them helped create. The moment that Donald Trump started to tell the truth about that, he was vilified. And it turned into this fanaticism that many people called Trump derangement syndrome. I tell you right now today, Drew, that Hollywood has blood on its hands, and it's the same blood today that they have had on their hands for a decade. At Breitbart.com, despite Google's just insane attempts to muzzle Breitbart searches in their algorithm, tens of millions of Americans have gotten a full, unadulterated education for over a decade about just how insanely vile some of the most popular people on this planet have treated not just Donald Trump, but members of his family, his administration, and anyone who supports him. It started during the campaign when Robert De Niro participated in a Get Out the Vote PSA in which he called Donald Trump a fraud and a con man and a dog that he would like to punch. It continued with Josh Whedon before he was canceled, and Me Too, the Avengers director, saying that he wanted to see a rhino F Paul Ryan to death. And as soon as Donald Trump was inaugurated, it only got worse because we all remember Kathy Griffin participating in a photo shoot, Drew. But there was a video of her holding a severed, bloody head. It was Madonna at a women's march saying she often thought about blowing up the White House. It was Johnny Depp in Europe at Glastonbury with cameras rolling saying, when's the last time an actor killed a president? It's just been nonstop. And in the comparisons to Nazi, the Trump to Nazism only really ramped up in 2019 and 2020. And the last thing I'll say, because I've ranted quite a bit here, is to see Stephen Colbert a week ago doing what felt like an obligatory 1-minute news update into the camera before he went on to his regularly pre-taped show talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk was just absolutely despicable, because that was the same Stephen Colbert who in 2017 ran a parody of Game of Thrones in which you saw Stephen Miller's head on a pike. That is who Hollywood is, and that is who they will always be, because they have not stopped since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And if they don't stop for that horrible video in which he was assassinated in front of his family, they will never stop, Drew.
I don't disagree. I'm afraid I worry that that's true. Let's put it that way. But I have a couple of things I want you to help me with, or just I'm curious how you dealt with a couple of these things. So Savannah, and people that don't know, is built around these beautiful squares. There's just all these beautiful, old squares. Some of them have Revolutionary War monuments in them, but a lot of them have Confederate Civil War monuments in there. Were you aware of that as a kid? Did you struggle with that? Did your dad help you understand what that was all about?
Yeah, I attended Thunderbolt Elementary, and there were constant field trips in which we did tour many of those statues. Look, I think I know where you're going with this, and I'm actually not going anywhere. I'm literally.
I know people want to destroy monuments, and I'm like, I always thought to myself, God, what would happen to Savannah if somebody got in there, because it's so beautiful. And yeah, go ahead.
They're monuments to the Democratic Party. If anything, I want to preserve that dark, ugly history of racial barbarity. And this, I think, it ties directly into the conversation that we're having. A lot of people are asking questions, how could a young person become so radicalized like this? And if you are supportive of the Democratic Party, then you are supportive of a party that has sanitized a lot of its history. You haven't really gotten it, certainly in public schools, in decades in this country. And the answer to the question is, well, yeah, if you are a Democratic Party leader, and I do make that distinction. I married a Democrat before I divorced her, I should say. But I love every Democrat in my family. I specifically talk about the leadership of that party. They have never offered this country anything by way of human rights or civil rights since its founding. There's a reason why Abraham Lincoln is the first Republican president, because left up to the Democratic Party, the oldest party on the planet, slavery probably would have still existed today. And after the Civil War.
But that's the next. Yeah, you're about to get into that. I for me, my eyes were I felt the scales falling from my eyes when I started reading Frederick Douglass's words, which I've done a lot of, and I came to him through Abraham Lincoln. And when I started reading his words, I'm like, oh my, and he was so clear that the greatest travesty perpetrated against Americans of African descent was the Reconstruction. Whereas he said they turned in the lash for the shotgun and the noose. And people are not aware, and that was all Democratic government, all of it, because things were going fine until what's his name, the general, lost control of things. Anyway, you tell me, what are your thoughts?
No. There's you're making a very salient point. Again, because people ask, why are we here? Why can the racial scars of the past finally be healed? Because leftism and progressivism, and specifically Democratic Party leadership, has to continue to pick at those scars. Because, I mean, you can go to the Democratic Party's national website today. Their history page starts at around 1920, right? When with the ratification, with the ratification of women's right to vote, which was thanks to Republicans, but the history of the party is why we are here today. After the Civil War, what did the Democratic Party do? It was an uninterrupted 100 plus years of racial barbarity, from segregation to black codes, to Jim Crow laws, to lynching. The Democratic Party had white-only primaries until 1944. The Supreme Court had to step in to stop that atrocity, and it just never really stopped. Time magazine put Senator Everett Dirksen, who I'm sure many people have never heard of. Time magazine put him on the cover of their pages in 1967, not Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was a rabid segregationist for 20 years in Congress in Texas. They put Everett Dirksen on the cover, because not for him, there would not have been any civil rights legislation in the 60s. And so whatever's been politically expedient, the Democrats have supported. Jesse Jackson was anti-abortion before he was pro-abortion. And if you ask the question of why schools don't get better, why did neighborhoods continue to crumble, you can lay all the blame at the feet of the Democrats. They are the people who are today open borders, which destroys industry and destroys communities. They are the people who are lax on crime, which disproportionately affects Hispanic and Black Americans. Just look at any honest data set and it will tell you it's the reason why people are lashing out and crying out. His mother in Memphis is calling for the National Guard to come to her city. Yeah. Listen to Yo Gotti, the rapper's rap about it. Everybody knows about it. It's the same Democratic Party that continues to govern over shoddy school systems while they fight investors who are trying to open charter schools so that Black, usually, and Hispanic mothers have a choice. That is what J.D. Vance is talking about when he's talking about how do we build bridges? How do we come together with people who hate us? They hate the country. They hate it as it's founded. I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect, but time and time again, when the Democratic Party had an opportunity to step up to deliver civil rights, they failed. And in many cases, they stood against it.
I'll beg everyone listening, read a biography on Frederick Douglass, read some of his speeches. A lot of them were not delivered even in this country because he kept getting attacked. They were delivered in England. And I was reading his consecration of the I think it was the 13th Amendment monument in Washington, D.C. And he was asked to speak there, and he went to, you don't want me to speak. I'm not going to say what you want me to say. And they were, no, please. And he came in and he goes, okay, well, Abraham Lincoln was a white supremacist. And I was like, grabbing my pearls. What do you mean? What do you mean? And he went on to say in his incredible logic and eloquence that he started as a racist, Lincoln, but he was convinced towards the end of the Civil War that he was no longer a racist, but he remained a white supremacist. In that, he only had this Eurocentric white person's view of the world, and Frederick Douglass could never get him to see him through the world through his eyes. Is really what he was asking for. And I thought, wow, that is what that is.
It's incredible too because Abraham Lincoln and Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, they saw the same fate. We never really got to see a lot of Lincoln post Civil War. We wouldn't
have had the Reconstruction that we had. We wouldn't have had what you and I are talking about. It would not have happened.
I said this. Thank God I was in Charleston. Last week when this awful atrocity happened, I was surrounded by. I didn't know what to do with my grief. Dr. Drew, but the fact that I was surrounded by good people. But I told a room of prominent Republicans in Charleston, South Carolina, actually in Mount Pleasant. But I told them, I said, Charlie was definitely, after Donald Trump was also almost assassinated, Charlie was asked to tone it down, to maybe hire more security, to change his security measures, and to even maybe just think about not doing these public events. And time again, Charlie dedicated his life not only to saving the country, but to saving souls. He really thought that his mission was to illuminate and educate people who were just misguided through that very same failed school system that I just talked about. But many of them by no fault of their own. And unfortunately, he gave his life for it. And it just heartens, I will tell you, everyone in the Breitbart newsroom, just incredibly amazing people that I'm blessed to work with, that Charlie Kirk was inspired first by Andrew Breitbart. Charlie Kirk wrote to Breitbart when he was in high school because he saw bias in the halls of his high school. And he wrote to us and we published his first article. And unfortunately, Andrew Breitbart was also taken from us far too long. But the legacy of Andrew and Charlie Kirk certainly will live on. And I think we've seen a lot of evidence of that in the last few days.
Well, Jerome, I appreciate your thoughts and I appreciate you writing over at Breitbart. And I hope you'll come back and help me struggle with some of these things that I really am trying to see everybody's point of view. I feel like the blind spots are getting us and I don't want to have them if I can avoid them. And so I'm trying to understand, I can't help but scratch this itch. Like I've noticed a lot of my African-American colleagues that are women are the ones defending the school system, which is the one so poorly serving Black students. I don't understand what that is. I don't understand what that is. And I'd like to know more. Why defend a system that's not working? Why don't we make it better?
The only thing I could assume is, there are a couple things. Just you can only have so many conversations with that young, single mother or father working two jobs to keep their child out of that failed public school. And not to say that all public schools are failures, because if there was any good thing to come out of Katrina, it is just a complete and total revamping of the public school system in New Orleans. But there are millions of children, there are millions of children who are trapped in these horrible failing schools. And those teachers, they just haven't been exposed. And there's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of teachers' assistants right here in this city. It is mind-boggling to talk to these teachers as I do as a good journalist. And I ask, well, what happens to a class where there's a teacher shortage? And they just say that the children go to the class and there's no teacher, and they have to catch up. It just strains the system. And we continue to have conversations about college attainment and college graduation rates and how students are still being mismatched because of affirmative action, but it's being practiced by a different name. And we're not having the conversation enough, Drew, about how these children are being failed K through 12. And it's by choice. It's absolutely by choice. The amount of money that we spend per pupil is absolutely ridiculous. And there are incredible stories like Dunbar High School, which was the first high school for Black children. Many of the teachers, Dr. Drew, were former slaves. And the Dunbar High School graduated students who went on to become the first graduates of Ivy League colleges in 1901, 1903. Dr. Thomas Sowell has written about this for decades. I say that to say that these schools don't have to fail. There was overcrowding. There were hand-me-down books at Dunbar High School. Every excuse that the teachers' unions throw out today, Dunbar High School overcame them. And this was 50 years before the civil rights movement even existed. And so most of the problems in this country, again, are problems because we don't hold our politicians to account enough. We don't need term limits. We are the term limit. If they're failing and sitting on their ass and not doing the job that we send them to our state houses in Washington, D.C. to do, it is up to us to hold them accountable, whether it's healthcare or policing or immigration or education.
Yeah. I totally agree. I feel like they've forgotten that they are servants. They serve us. We are the bosses. They've lost track of that completely. Well, yeah. Curtis, Jerome, well, let's leave it right here. Where can people find you? What are you working on right now?
Oh, gosh. I have the unfortunate job and duty, but I do take it seriously of just holding up a mirror to, again, some of the most vile human beings on the planet who also happen to be some of the most famous people, continuing to disparage Charlie's name and his legacy. So I'm just reporting on who these Hollywood celebrities truly are. Not all of them, but certainly far too many. People can find me at Jerome E. Hudson on both Twitter and Instagram, and maybe at a Jacksonville Jaguars game in the club seats.
All right. Well, that sounds like fun. Who are they playing this weekend?
The Houston Texans, who are 0-2, and we can effectively end their season on Sunday.
Nice. All right, my friend. Good to talk to you, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
God bless. Thank you.
Jerome, thank you. All right, so I have to run out to join my friend Greg Gutfeld. That's why we are early today. We appreciate it. Coming up tomorrow, we have another series of great guests. We're going to talk to a bully hunter and Gabe. I cannot pronounce the last name. I'm going to get it by tomorrow. And Caleb, that's all tiny for me at this distance. I can't see what's on there. I know Latipo's coming.
Tomorrow we have I have just a lot of admiration and respect. It's Dr. James McGibney. He's from the Bully Hunter website, but he's the hacker guy. If anyone remembers that big Netflix documentary, The Most Hated Man on Earth, this is the hacker guy who helped Charlotte Laws in that documentary. But he does this. This is like his whole life mission right now, is finding people who are harassing others online, using old photos of them, trying to get them to lose their jobs, finds the people and gets those people to justice. So I've watched about half of the screener that we got of the first episode. It's really good. So this guy's going to be real interesting.
He may have some other. I'm guessing he has a lot of work right now.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But,
he's a smart one.
All right. What else? I can't read.
Then on the 23rd, we have Dr. Joseph Latipo. On the 24th, we have Naomi Wolf with Nick Holscher and Jessica Rose.
Naomi's coming back.
On the 30th, it's going to be an earlier show at 12:30 Pacific. We have Andre Burkhoff.
Oh. Okay, this is an indulgence. Burkhoff is an indulgence to me. Apologies to everyone, but he is a famous journalist over in Europe, and I want to get and I found out that he speaks pretty good English. So I want to get from him the European perspective. I keep hearing, America's so disrespectful. Everyone's lost respect for us. No one thinks. I want to get. He's a reasonable man, very smart guy, been around forever. What is the European perspective on what we're doing here in this country? What I see, I've been watching his reporting for a little while, is they're jealous of what we're doing and want to get a piece of it. They want to do something similar, it seems like. And then you have Tommy Robinson, having a 4 million person march in London. That's us. I think that is inspiring some of that change. But we'll get his perspective. I'll try not to bias it before then. Caleb, thank you for this. We will see you all then tomorrow at our usual time. Thank you for putting up with today's early show. Tomorrow is 2 o'clock Pacific time. We will see you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.